If I'm always around people, persons, this must be my vibration if I can only have that which I'm a match to. If I'm always around people that are always, it feels like kicking me out from under, like, say parents, like I've spent a lot of time around them recently, and they just, I mean, you say anything and they'll find a way to kick you out from under, and it's, I mean, yes, it's made me a stronger person, but I hear from you that's irrelevant. Strong, it's about, well, I guess it's caused me to find a way to not see it as it is, to see it as I want to see it, to look at it through the broader eyes of Source, that sort of thing. But why is it that I continue to find myself around these draining individuals that are always like kicking me out from under?
Because as you bump up against the unwanted experience, you're launching a desire, but you're not lining up with the desire, you're lining up with the experience that caused the creation of the desire. In other words, it's as simple as this. You know you want something different, but you stand in an attitude of explaining why you want it differently rather than lining up with the different than you want. Another way of saying it is you're more in alignment with the problem than you are with the solution. And that comes, you can sort of feel that in this conversation about leaving and coming to a place like Los Angeles. There is a desire to do it, but if you stay in the justifying mode of why you want to do it, then it never unfolds in a way that's easy or satisfying. You really have to become solution-oriented. And there is a tendency when you're unsure or when someone else disagrees with you, there's a tendency to try to justify your rightness by pushing against their wrongness that keeps you bound. So it really is about seeking the solution faster. So let's take this example. So you said they're sort of kicking out from under you, which means they're finding fault with you, or what do you mean more?
It could be anything like that. It could be finding fault with you. It could be always trying to explain to you why that is not going to work for you. You know, you really should that just always showing you the negative, why it's not going to work out. And always encouraging the conversation when I'm trying to steer it and flow the energy in a more positive way, pulling it back to why it's not going to work out, what's wrong with this, it shouldn't be like this. It's like a very draining energy always around you, so it's like you have to be so much to try and stay in that positive way. It's after a while you go, oh, Jesus, I can't do it anymore.
Here, we're going to get to the bottom of something really important here, because everybody is experiencing interpersonal relationships, and almost no one is having a really successful, satisfying experience within them. So let's have a conversation about this here.
Good.
So let's say that you're interacting with someone who, for whatever reason, parents, co-workers, lovers, something's going on where you are continually bumping up against uncomfortable things. And let's take it even further, because something you said, you want to be positive, and something that they're observing is concerning them, and so they're wanting to bring you back to reality. So they're trying to get you. Oh, we hit a little bell there, didn't we? They want you to face reality, and you want to create a different reality. So you are annoyed by what they're constantly doing, because it's happening constantly, and you're using positive words to try to lead yourself in a more positive direction. The question that we want to put to you is, if your positive words are backed up by a positive feeling, there's no more friction in your life, and they won't bump up against you anymore. But if your positive words are not authentic, if you're just parroting the words because you think that that's what you're supposed to say, but the vibration within you is really something different, then you're going to keep attracting the very thing that you don't want. And your parents who adore you can feel that discord within you. In other words, you feel a little lost to them. When you are really in alignment with who you are, you have a clarity and a power about you that no one can deny. No one wants to try to guide you or teach you or lead you in another direction when you're tuned in, tapped in, turned on to the guidance that's coming forth within you. And even if they want to, they bounce off of you in irrelevancy because the clarity of who you are is so strong. But when you're talking about them kicking the legs out from under you, which means you've got your attention upon that, then the words that you're offering in your attempt or effort, fake it till you make it, to be in alignment with who you really want to be, are not vibrationally being answered by the universe. And so you're just holding yourself in a sort of battle, which is a contrasting experience, not unlike the contrasting experiences that you will feel when you come to an environment where there's more going on. There's contrast in every environment, you see.
So how do you override the system as it is in that way? Because as you're saying, offer more thoughts, offer more words to try and, redirect the thought. But if there isn't that felt, like you're saying, if there's not that felt belief behind it, well how do I get to override that?
Look at it this way. So we're going to give you what we would do if we were standing in your physical shoes. Let's lay in this discussion a really key part to all of this business of law of attraction. Let's talk about the path of least resistance, which means a deliberate tuning of your vibration that allows what you want to be generated, to begin to come into your experience in more emphatic ways. So this is the basis of this discussion, path of least resistance. So now you're interacting with someone who you keep bumping up against. And there are many who would say, in fact, Esther says to herself on a regular basis, I need to work the bugs out of this. In other words, I need to find a way of experiencing this and not feeling uncomfortable about it. Mm-hmm. And we want to say to her, is that the path of least resistance? Is the path of least resistance to modify what you want to blend with someone else? Is that the path of least resistance? Mm-hmm. We would call that the path of greatest resistance. Is the path of least resistance to not follow your own dreams and follow a course that someone else is laying out for you?
Oh, no.
We would not call that the path of least resistance. We would call that the path of greatest resistance, wouldn't you? Mm-hmm. And so when you start thinking about what is the path of least resistance, it's always the path that feels the best to you. So if it feels good to you to go, go. If it feels good to you to do something else, do something else. In other words, the path is going to continue to unfold. But what humans do, for the most part, is you assign these principles, or you assign these, well, what I would do, or what my parents would do, or what I think I should do, rather than allowing your guidance to show you the path of least resistance in every moment. So let's say your parents are in disagreement with you about something and you feel uncomfortable about it. Well, that's not the path of least resistance. So let's say you say to yourself, well, I should acquiesce to what they want. And that feels bad. That's not the path of least resistance. Let's say you say, well, I should just get out of here. I should just get out from under their jurisdiction, out from under their awareness. I should just go somewhere where I can be free of their opinions and attitudes. That doesn't feel good either, because that's not the path of least resistance. And you're saying, what? Abraham, there's no path of least resistance. Staying isn't it. Leaving isn't it. And we say, because it isn't about action. It's about the attitude that you form about it before you take the action. We never want you to feel that it is your job to stand in a place and behave in a way that makes someone else happy, especially not your parents. Because they're the ones that you've been dealing with the longest on all of that, you see. It's not your job to modify yourself to make yourself a way that is pleasing to them. It's your job to find thought by thought, idea by idea, that is pleasing to you. So you have to go slow with it, and you have to feel your way as you go. So Abraham, if it's not a good idea to stay, because that's not the path of least resistance, and it's not a good idea to go, because that's not the path of least resistance, what in the world are you talking about? We're talking about picking one or the other, and it doesn't matter which, and lining up with it. That's the path of least resistance. So if you stay, you have to find a way of finding the path of least resistance. So you say things like, my parents don't know what I know. My parents are not the ones who are to pick for me. My parents mean well, they just can't choose for me. And if you decide to go, you don't go because you're trying to get away from someone who is trying to guide you differently. You go because you believe that there are things that you want to discover. You believe there's contrast that you want to devour. You believe that there is new insight that you want to accomplish. You believe that there are new experiences for you to live. And as you play that game of lining up, as you decide to stay for the time that you're staying, as you line up with it, or as you begin you can actually, and this is something we really want you to play with. You're in the perfect position to do this. Feel appreciation for your parents and line up with the idea of being with them while you're with them. Then think about coming to Los Angeles and line up with the idea of coming to Los Angeles. And what you're going to discover is you're thinking about two opposite experiences, but you're lining up with each of them. So the common denominator is you're lining up, you're lining up, you're lining up. Path of least resistance, path of least resistance. And what happens is things just present themselves to you easily, effortlessly, that harmonize with all that you have become. Now, we know what we've just delivered to you is the perfect scenario for perfect creation. And there's not one of you in this room that's going to do that anytime soon. Because you're living with other people that are yanking your chains. You're having other experiences that are unpleasant to you. We would like to just zap you all with a creation wand that says, give yourself permission to do what feels best to you right here, right now. And if getting the hell out of Dodge feels better, do it.
Hello.
In other words, if it feels better to just remove yourself from a situation that's just been bothering you, then it is for sure the path of least resistance to do something different. But once you make that decision, don't spend all of your time justifying why you left, because it will hold you in the same torture chamber that you've been in. And so that's why we say get back to that thing that we were talking about earlier, which is ask yourself, is this the path of least resistance? Is this the path of least resistance? So we can feel for you that the path of least resistance is to leave there. Your path of least resistance is to come to path of least resistance is to strike out on your own in a fuller, stronger way. The path of least resistance is to do so many of those things that you've been wanting to do that you've been holding back for. But the path of least resistance is for sure not defending your action by pushing against anything that you are leaving behind. Because all that does is bring the resistance along into your new path, and then you begin to negatively attract rather than positively attract. You have a huge amount of positive momentum all stored up, all there calling you. That's why it feels so strong to you to do it. That makes sense to you?